Hello guys and welcome to Technological, where you learn and grow. In the previous tutorial, we explored different data types in Python which are essentials for any programmer or analyst. Today, we will learn how to convert one data type into another, or we call it typecasting. So now we already know there are different data types in Python like integers, floats, strings and booleans. They are used in code as per the requirement. As if I want to save a value for gravitational constant, which is 9.8, then the data type will be float. Or if I want to save the value of goals scored by a player, then it would be an integer, as the goals cannot be in fraction. Similarly, if I want to save someone's name, then the data type would be string. And if I want to use true or false as values, then the data type will be Boolean. There are situations when you need to convert your variables from one data type to another, and in Python this happens in two ways, either implicit conversion or explicit conversion. For example, if I add an integer number to a floating number, the output will be in floating numbers. That means my integer was converted implicitly to float data type and then the summation was performed. But if I want to make sure the output is integer, we can convert the output to an integer value by using explicit conversion. For explicit conversion or typecasting, we use predefined functions like int for converting into integers, float for converting to floating numbers, and str for converting to strings. We can convert integers or floats or strings to Boolean values as well with bool function. So let's start by creating a variable called num1 and assign it the value 10. For displaying the value, we use print function, and to check the data type, we will use type function. So let me use the print function to display the value of num1 variable, and I will use again the print function along with the type function to display the data type for num1 variable. Let's execute the cell and check the output. We can clearly see the class or data type of this variable is int. I'm creating another variable num2 and assigning a value 9.5 to this. Let's print this variable and see the data type as well. So I'll use print function again. Num2 will be my argument. Then print function along with type. So we see that the output or the data type of this variable num2 is float, as it holds or stores a floating number. What will happen if I try to sum num1 and num2 together? Will the output be an integer or float? Let's write the code and check the output. Num1 plus num2. Execute the cell and check the output. The output is 19.5. That means num1 variable, which was integer data type, has been converted automatically to float, and then the summation was done. Hence the output value is also a floating number. Let's create another variable num3 and assign a number in form of a string to this variable. So number 15 in single quotes or double quotes will make it a string. Now if I try to add, let me just execute the cell first and print this variable num3 and show you the data type as well. So this is a string data type. This variable num3 holds the data, which is actually a string. Now if I try to add num1 to num3, then the code will be like num1 plus num3. Let's execute the cell and see the output. We get an error which says that we cannot add integer and strings together. However, we know that our string is actually a number. So num3 variable contains a string which actually is a number. So we can convert the data type of num3 variable to integer from a string using int function. So we will reassign the value to num3 variable and convert the string to integer. So for that, I will use num3 variable again and use int function to convert the existing value of num3 variable from a string to integer. Once this is done, I will again use print and type function to check the data type of this variable. Let me execute this cell and now see, after the conversion, the data type of num3 variable has changed to int. Let's display the value of num3. It will be same 15 but without quotes now. So print num3. Now it is an integer value. So if I try to add num1 to num3 now, it will be working absolutely fine. In similar manner, I can convert a string to float data type as well. So let's reassign any numeric value as a string to num3 variable. So num3 equals, in single quotes, some value. So let's say 12. Use the type function to check the data type again. So I'll use num3 and this is again a string. So I have again assigned a number as a string to num3 variable. Let's use float function to convert this string to a floating number and reassign to variable num3. So num3 equals, now this time we are going to convert into float, so we will use float function, and for that we will again provide num3 as an argument. Use print and type function together again to check the data type. Execute the cell to check the value. Now it is going to be float. So now num3 variable, which was containing 12 as a string, now contains 12 as a floating number. So let's see how does it look like now. So now the value is 12 along with a decimal point. So it is a floating number. Same way, we can convert any numeric value to a string using str function. So let's convert num1, which is actually an integer. So let me show you what is the value for num1 and what is the data type for num1. So num1 is 10 in value and the data type is integer. We will call a string function or str function with num1 as an argument. So num1, again I will reassign to num1 str function and num1 will be the argument. So the value after conversion will be assigned back to num1 variable. Again use print and type function to check the data type. So after converting num1 variable to a string, the data type of variable has changed to string. Similarly, I can convert num2 variable, which is actually a floating number, to a string with the str function. Next type of data type conversion that we will be talking about is the Boolean. We can convert any string, any integer or any float into a Boolean value by using bool function. So any integer value apart from 0 will be converted to Boolean value true, and the 0 is converted to false. So apart from 0, everything when converted to Boolean will be true and the 0 will be false. When I say any integer value apart from 0, that includes the negative integers as well. So even if I convert -1 or -5 or -10 to Boolean, that will convert into true. Similarly, any floating number, even if it is a small fraction like 0.00001, will convert to true in Boolean. When it is absolute 0 like 0.0, then it will be false. If we try to convert any string to Boolean value, then all strings will convert to true. Only an empty string which does not contain anything, not even a single white space, will convert to false. So let's try to convert our variable num1, which is a string at the moment, into a Boolean variable. So I'll use a variable called bool1 and convert num1 to Boolean value. So, and then print the value of bool1 and check the data type as well with type function. So number has converted into true, and as we can see, the data type of bool1 variable is bool, that is Boolean. If we try to convert any number, at the moment num1 was a string, so it was a conversion from a string to Boolean. Let's use a variable that is num2, and num2 is float and contains a floating number. If I try to convert this into a Boolean value, so I will use a variable called bool2 and use bool function to convert num2 into Boolean value. Let's call the print function to check the value in bool2 and use the type function to check the data type of bool2 variable. So any value which is present in floating numbers or integers or string, if it is not 0, in case of strings, it has to be completely empty string. So let me create one string variable called str1, and I will provide just 2 quotes, nothing in between. So this is kind of an empty string. If I try to print this string, I will get nothing, and if I want to check the data type of this string, it will be string. If I convert this string variable into Boolean, then the converted value will be false. So create a variable called bool3 and use bool function to convert str1 variable into Boolean value. Use print function to check the value. Use print and type function to check the data type. So when my string is completely empty, there is nothing in the string, then it will be converted into false. Similarly, if I have a variable called num4 and it is 0, it is going to be integer, and once I try to convert this into a Boolean value, so let's use variable bool4 and call bool function to convert num4 into Boolean value, and I'm printing the value of bool4 and the data type. So let's see this. So when the integer has a value 0, it will be converted to false in case of Boolean values. Now, if it was a floating number, so let's start with 0.0001. So this is a very small number. It's just a fraction, and let's first explore the data type for this. So num5, this is going to be float, and if I convert this into, let's say, variable bool5, use bool function and call num5 as argument, print the value for bool5 and check the data type with type function. So you see, even if the number was very small, it was so small, it was just a fraction, 0.0001, still it converted to true. Let's re-execute these cells and assign the number 0.0 to num5 and then see what happens. So 0.0 will still be float. As we can see, the data type remains float. And if I re-execute the cells for converting this num5 variable to Boolean, this time it will convert to false. Now if we convert a Boolean true to integer value, it will convert to integer 1. So if I have a variable bool6 and the value is true, let's use print function and type function to check the data type. And if I convert this bool6 into integer, so I will say int and bool6 and print the value for num6. Check the data type. So the true when converted to integer will become 1. Similarly, I can use num7 as a variable and convert bool6 to float. Print the value in num7 and print the data type of num7. This will convert to 1.0, which is actually a floating number. So the true will convert to 1 in integer and it will convert to 1.0 in case of float. Similarly, if I convert, let me take another variable called bool7 and assign a value called false, which is actually the Boolean false. And if I convert bool7 to integer, so let's take num8 and int of bool7 and take another variable num9 and convert float of bool7. Let's print the values. Print num8, print num9. So false converts to 0 in case of integer and 0.0 in case of false. Similarly, if we convert Boolean true to a string, that will be converted into a string and will have the same text, that is true. So we have bool6, which is still true. So let me print the value of bool6. And if I try to convert bool6 into a string, so let me create a variable called str2 and convert bool6 into a string. Print str2 to check the value and print the data type as well. So now the Boolean value of true has been converted to a string and it remains the true. The text is true. Now it does not have any Boolean value, it does not have any Boolean significance, but it will remain true. The class or the data type of the variable has been changed to a string. Similarly, if it was false, so bool7 is false, you can use print function to check the value. And if I convert this into a string, the value will change to the text, the normal text. That will not remain a Boolean value, that will convert to normal string text. So we will use bool7 as an argument with the string function, use print function to check the value for str3 variable and print the data type as well. So we see the value has been converted to string data type, but it remains false. So in the end, I would like you to do an exercise where you will create a variable which is integer, say inum, then convert the data type to float and assign the value to fnum, then convert the fnum variable to a string and assign to snum, and finally convert snum to a Boolean value and assign to bnum. Then display their values using the print function and display their data type by using the type function. With this, I will conclude this tutorial and I hope this was helpful for you. Please do subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss out on the new tutorials. Please like, comment and share so that everyone can learn. Keep learning. Thank you.